Our topic is the evolving e-commerce retail landscape. And I'll talk to you in a minute about what checkout data brings to us. So I'm going to be focusing specifically on e-commerce. I know Steve was looking at Holiday, which is like a point of sale retail tracking service, both e-commerce as well as brick and mortar. But I'm really going to focus on e-commerce. We're talking about how that landscape is changing. So we'll look at some consumer profiles and spend. We'll look at who the biggest influencers are in the tech online environment. And then, as Steve mentioned, I'll get into smart home brand and retail landscape, but we chose that over hundreds of categories we could be looking at, just because it's so unique to see new products, new consumers, and the way that they're selling online is pretty unique, and I think bodes well in an interesting way for the future. And then finally, we'll look at women in the smart home space and how much they represent of overall e-commerce, and then specifically technology and smart homes. So checkout is a part of NPD that is based on the consumer. So basically, we're getting receipts online from over 3.3 million consumers. We're getting every single online order all the way back through time. So really, for the first time ever, we get to look at all consumers, all brands they buy, all retailers they're buying in over all time. So it's pretty neat for us to be able to look at this number of transactions, and I'll share with you. We had 6 million consumer tech product transactions in 2016. So it's not point of sale data, we just go to brand level, but it's pretty neat to be able to drill down into categories and brands as we can, and be able to look at the market basket, be able to look at attach rates, not only at the time of purchase, but at different retailers across different brands and different categories over the ownership life cycle of a product, and that's part of what I'll be talking about today. So in the data that we're looking at today, it's adults who are 18 years and over, just to kind of set the stage for what you're looking at. So what we found is over the past year, the biggest spenders online are a tight and hugely influential group, and I'm talking about the tech spenders now. The evolving nature of brand really powers online channel dynamics, and that may not mean a lot to you now, but I think it will in about 10 minutes. Portability and cocooning, and I'm talking about the same types of products that Steve was talking about in terms of headphones and accessories and cocooning when we're talking about smart home. Those have had the greatest incidence growth, meaning the incidence of online buyers who are purchasing these categories and the growth in that penetration. We also see that women as a whole have the greatest online total purchase incidence, regardless of the category, yet when we look at specific tech categories that I might think would be appealing to women as it impacts the usefulness of these tools in their home, we find that there's really big inequality. So to set the stage, 1 in every $3 over the past year were spent online in consumer tech. So yes, e-commerce is an important channel. I think we all know that. But what's interesting is the environment surrounding just tech. And let me describe what we're looking at here. Quarter by quarter from 2015, you're looking at total spend across the entire retail landscape. So this could be apparel or footwear or pet supplies or beauty or tech. Look at the growth that we saw, particularly, I mean, we don't have our Q4 2017 data out yet. That'll be out at the end of the month. So, so just give me a ring if you want to learn about that when it comes out. But from Q3 2016 to Q3 2017, the average online spend for a buyer went from $834 to $1,005. It's pretty big. And what you're looking at on the green line is the percentage that consumer tech dollars represented of the total tech spend. So it's about $1 in $3, but over the past few quarters, it had been going down to probably around 1 in 4 because people's overall spend is growing with their confidence and trust in buying things online. And some of the biggest categories that we saw growth in were apparel, beauty, home improvement, food service, and pet supplies, which is stuff that we're kind of used to going into stores or to restaurants to get. So again, that just proves out the nature of e-commerce as something that consumers are becoming just as comfortable as they are with buying at brick and mortar. I'm going to do an intermission. This is weird, but bear with me. Raise your hand if you love cats. You love cats. Okay, looks like it's about 20%. Raise your hand if you hate cats. Oh my God, more people hate cats. All right, whether you love or hate cats, there's something in this for all of you. All right, so just bear with me. This has to do with text. So these are my cats. Django's on. Django's stage right, Thunder's stage left. Notice they're sitting on laptops, but like staring out the window forlornly. There's a Kindle in there too. I didn't plan this. These are just impromptu. So I gave them a smart mouse for Christmas. I actually went and bought a smart mouse, and you can set it so that it sort of buzzes around every couple hours. It's supposed to entertain the cats when you're not home. So how pleased do they look about that? So it lasted like 10 minutes. I'm like, no thanks. They were really bored. So it's Thunder being bored and telling me he's kind of pissed off that he's eating dry food as well. So what I realized is we bought a bird feeder around the same time, and you can see Django stage right looking out at a blue jay, and Thunder's like, just get me at that sparrow. So, you know, smart isn't everything for all people. But what I thought is that there's a new product that we could introduce to Thunder for next year. Has anyone seen this? The guy actually, his beloved cat passed on, and he turned the cat into a drone. And now the cat's like flying freely and can look at the birds in the sky just like a bird. So also, okay, so to tie that back to this presentation, drones was actually one of the biggest revenue gators in e-commerce. So I just thought you guys needed a break from stats. Now I'm going to go back to the stats. So thank you, cat lovers and feeders. All right, back to the numbers. So the e-commerce technology buyer, 52% of all online buyers have bought at least something online in tech over the past year. They spent over $1,100 in the past year. They made at least 12 visits online or purchase orders, and they spent about $93 per purchase. So there's a lot of opportunity for people buying tech online, and there's a lot we can know about these people. Are they loyal? What are they buying? And then we said, who are the most valuable customers in the e-commerce landscape? This is just one guy, but I think he may represent us fairly well. 7% of online tech buyers represent 40% of revenue. So you can throw out the 80-20 rule. This is 7% representing 40%, which is a pretty big deal. So if we look at these guys as our influencers, and we're just calling them tech super consumers for now, do they bode, what do they say about our future of spend and what the mix and growth is going to look like? So let's look at them first. So there's 77% male, so I'm just telling you those that are skewing much more heavily than the norm. 36% earn over $100,000 or more a year. 24% live on the West Coast. I put left in by accident. And 22% have postgrad degrees. So these are an educated bunch, and they're largely male. And I was going to say they look a lot like people in this room, but raise your hand if you're a woman. Okay, this is cool. So we're like 50-50. I like that. Anyway, these guys are much more skewed towards male. So what do we know about them? What was interesting, and this is really getting into the topic of our conversation here, is the channel's different for them. So we could buy it at pure play online e-commerce player. We could buy it at direct-to-consumer manufacturer.com, and we could buy it at click and mortar. How is that landscape shifting? Well, the tech super consumers have increased from just over 1 in 10 of their dollars being spent at a direct-to-consumer to about 1 in $5. So we're seeing that shift. Among all other consumers, it's remained relatively stable. I think it's around 13%. And we put out a press release on this yesterday. But you can see these influencers are moving towards direct-to-consumer. So how does that change how we think about ourselves as brands or retailers or marketers? So now I'm zooming into the total tech e-commerce buyer. This is no longer just the super consumers to see, and Steve spoke about a lot of these too in terms of the growth. I'm just telling you penetration, so the percent of consumers who bought at least one of these over the past year. Where were the biggest increases in penetration? Even though they may be small, smart lighting, security and monitoring systems, headphones, which you saw were huge over the holidays, wearable tech accessories, so there's where our portable is coming in. So even though fitness trackers aren't the bomb anymore, people, after they buy their hardware, are continuing to buy the accessories, and you see a lot of that happening online. And finally, streaming audio speakers. And here's where I'd like to move in a little bit more and look at the interaction between these voice-activated speakers and the smart home devices that you can buy around them. So when we look at smart home devices, and what I'm talking about in this category, I'm going to have to cheat and look ahead here: security and monitoring, system controllers, smart lighting, power and sensors, and smart entry. I'll come back to this slide. I was just using that as my cheat. Among those 5 different areas, last year, and I specifically chose year-to-date September 2016, because I wanted to kind of get a non-holiday view of buyers. So last year, about 4 in 5 buyers were first-time buyers of smart home devices. This year, year-to-date September, about 3/4 were. So 1/4 was coming back and buying new stuff. So you're starting to see, are people developing loyalty to different brands and different retailers as they buy? And you also have, really the beginning of mainstreaming of smart home devices for first-time buyers coming into the market. So we want to keep an eye on the difference between these two types of buyers. Steve, we're spot on. Remember we said that the dollar mix was around, what did we say? What was 50%? Giving a pop quiz. It's 50% growth, wasn't it, for security and monitoring? All right. This is dollar mix. Okay, so we're looking at mix, but we really saw an increase in the proportion of security and monitoring dollars as a percentage of all smart home devices. So what's interesting now is I'm going to give you a bit of a pop quiz. So these were the top 10 brands in the online brand landscape of smart home devices. No numbers here, just left to right, top to bottom. These are the top brands. So of these top 10 brands, how many were in existence before 2005? I just yell out a number.
3, 4.
Who said 4? Somebody said 4. Smarty Pants. It was 4 because Philips was 1891, Netgear 96, Samsung 1938, and TP-Link 1996. So you've got all these brands and smart home devices that are fairly new. People are going for fairly new brands. So it changes the landscape of how do we grow loyalty among brands as we develop new categories. What is the meaning of everything in these new categories? Not only that, I'm going to switch from brand to retailers now. So check this out. Same idea, but now we're looking at the top 10 retailers for smart home device brands. And I didn't do the quiz for you, but 3 out of the 10 were direct to consumer. So these same 3 were within the top 10 brands. They're also selling their own direct to consumer from websites. So it's just really interesting to look at how the dynamics are changing for how we sell online. And in fact, you see in some cases a direct-to-consumer is outselling some national electronics retailers. And maybe you see home improvement in here, even QVC. So there are a lot of different choices consumers have. Now, when I think about consumers, I want to think about demographics as well. And I mentioned our tech super consumer was super male. Overall, in e-commerce, over half of e-commerce buyers were women, regardless of the category, right? So over half, which is, I think, slightly greater than their proportion of people overall in the US market. For tech, and all of the tech categories I mentioned within, women have grown as a percentage. But if you look at tech, it's up 5 points to 41%, so not the same proportion. I don't know that women will ever be exactly the same proportion as men when it comes to tech, but streaming audio speakers, such as the voice-activated, we're up to 42%, and when I look at the smart home devices that may surround them, it's much lower. In fact, smart lighting, only half of the incidence of purchases was made by women as was made by women for streaming audio speakers. So that feels like an opportunity to help women as it comes to connecting these devices. And what we can also do here is look at streaming audio devices such as the DOT. And what we did is we looked at anyone that bought a DOT, what did they buy in the month ensuing after that? And what we found is that 15% are attaching smart lighting, 10% security and monitoring, 8% power and sensors, 7% system controllers, and 2% smart locks. So particularly smart lighting have a much greater attach incidence than you see incidence of purchase overall. on the online world. And I will also say nearly 1 in 10 buyers of a dot bought another dot within 4 weeks. So it's just interesting to look at what is this ecosystem and what is the cadence of people's purchasing, and how do they get to know really what it is that they should be buying and what goes together. So how do we make the smart home ecosystem more inviting to women who are really running the household? At least I think so. Less than 1 in 10 smart lighting dollars went through click-and-mortar retailers online last year, which means they're going more towards the pure play. So how do you find that ecosystem where you can actually experience something in store and sort of have a fluid interaction between what you're buying and seeing in store, and it's okay to be showrooming in store and then going and purchasing online. So we think there's opportunity there for click-and-mortar retailers. So finally, some implications, and then we'll get to some Q&A. We really have a lot to learn, I think, from these emerging brands who are changing channels. They are changing the way we look at channels within e-commerce, and they're also changing channels from selling through other websites to taking it upon themselves to sell direct. It's important to follow the money in purchase cadence to grow loyalty. We're seeing some real connections here between the purchase of a voice-activated speaker and other smart home devices. How do we tie those together? And can we bring the dollars forward and attach things all at the same time? And what's the cadence over time of attach rate? And how do we look at loyalty and the way people and where people are purchasing? And finally, it's important to find the new natural. What is the new nature of consumers? Well, they're making their own natural balance in relating e-commerce to in-store purchases. Can we unite those brick-and-click experiences so that it's really natural and I'm getting the same level of service and feeling like I've got that same level of support, whether I'm buying from that retailer online or I'm going into a store. So that is a short snippet of what's going on in the e-commerce world.